I don't think Khalil Gibran needs any introduction. By some accounts, he's the third best selling poet of all time after Shakespeare and Lao Tzu. But I don't think we should introduce him in this manner. Yes, of course, the popularity is there. His words you'll find everywhere, from greeting cards and wedding invitations to wall hangings and motivational literature. But his literature is much more than that. The voice that he has, his writing has, it's that of comfort, love, tolerance. It's visionary. And that is something we find in his famous book called The Prophet. And I would really recommend you to read this book. And you can find for yourself what all beauty and magic that is there in his writing. But let's talk about something else. I'm here with a book of his which is called Khalil Gibran's Little Book of Life. It's a collection of his words, short stories, poems, and this book takes a fresh look at Gibran's words and his wisdom, and presents you Gibran's words on life, how he viewed life, how beautifully and abstractly he created his art. He was also a visual artist, by the way. And when we read his works, we find how beautifully you can preserve life itself in art form. And it has that breath of fresh air. When you take a leaf out of it, you read it, you feel the freshness. So I'm going to narrate a few poems and really short pieces from this book, and I hope you'll enjoy that. Some are really short, like this one, which goes like, trees are poems. Trees are poems that the earth writes upon the sky. We fell them down and turn them into paper, that we may record our emptiness. So you see, it's really short and has that depth at the same time. But that is Gibran for you. Let me tell you another really short story which is called Art and Life. Art and Life. 4 poets were sitting around a bowl of punch that stood on a table. The first poet said, "Methinks I see with my third eye the fragrance of this wine hovering in space like a cloud of words in an enchanted forest." The second poet raised his head and said, "With my inner ear, I can hear those mist birds singing, and the melody holds my heart, as the white rose imprisons the bee within her petals." The third poet closed his eyes and stretched his arm upwards and said, "I touch them with my hand. I feel their wings like the breath of a sleeping fairy brushing against my fingers." Then the fourth poet rose and lifted up the bowl, and he said, "Alas, friends, I'm too dull of sight and of hearing and of touch. I cannot see the fragrance of this wine, nor hear its song, nor feel the beating of its wings. I perceive but the wine itself. Now, therefore, must I drink it, that it may sharpen my senses and raise me to your blissful heights." and putting the bowl to his lips, he drank the punch to the very last drop. The three poets, with their mouths open, looked at him aghast, and there was a thirsty yet unlyrical hatred in their eyes. So once again, you see, there is simplicity and profound wisdom at the same time, and it is captured in a fable. That is something I think Gibran does beautifully, probably better than most others. And you notice that there is also spiritual element to his writings, and perhaps the reason that he connects with so many readers everywhere. So let me read out this poem for you, which is called Your Daily Life is Your Temple. Your daily life is your temple and your religion. Whenever you enter into it, take with you your all. Take the plough and the forge and the mallet and the lute, the things you have fashioned in necessity or for delight. For in reverie you cannot rise above your achievements, nor fall lower than your failures. And take with you all people. For in adoration you cannot fly higher than their hopes, nor humble yourself lower than their despair. And if you would know God, be not therefore a solver of riddles, rather look about you and you shall see God playing with your children. And look into space, you shall see God walking in the cloud, arms outstretched in the lightning, then descending in the rain. You shall see God smiling in the flowers, then rising and waving hands in the trees. And that's how he combines spirituality with art. There is another short poem which I find meaningful. It's called The Value of Time. The value of time. They deem me mad because I will not sell my days for gold. And I deem them mad because they think my days have a price. They spread before us their riches of gold and silver, of ivory and ebony, and we spread before them our hearts and our spirits. And yet they deem themselves the hosts and us the guests. So you can notice how he challenges a lot of things in the society, and that too without really saying anything against it. And that's the magic of art, isn't it? And I can go on and on and on with all these little stories and poems. There are over 100 of those. And I'm sure if you get a chance to read it, you too will enjoy this. So I'm going to finish this podcast with this final tale, which is called A Tale of Two Tales. Once upon an evening, a man and a woman found themselves together in a stagecoach. They had met before. The man was a poet, and as he sat beside the woman, he sought to amuse her with stories, some that were of his own weaving, and some that were not his own. But even while he was speaking, the lady went to sleep. Then suddenly the coach lurched and she awoke, and she said, I admire your interpretation of the story of the Jonah and the whale. And the poet said, But, madam, I've been telling you a story of my own about a butterfly and a white rose, and how they behaved the one to the other.